This being recorded word.
Hello, everyone. So today I wanted to come on and talk about something that's going on with us with relation to the old apartment we moved out of. So, um, as you may or may not know, we moved out of Camden Shadow Brook Apartments, and in moving out of that apartment, um, we moved out officially, completely moved out as of March 6th of 2023. And we got the report and the charges for our move out. Now, if you see on the channel, I think it may even be like the fourth or fifth video after this one because I haven't done a lot of videos since then. Um, you can see a video of the move out that it says goodbye 202. I'll put a link to it in the description if you want to kind of reference back to it and not have to go back into the channel. The reason I'm really bringing this to you is part because I want to draw attention to what I think is questionable practices and concerns I have about the uh, integrity of how apartment communities handle themselves now. Because with Camden Shadow Brook, we had quite a few issues when we were living there. Um, I'll just tell you kind of to get started before I get into this one, because this is sort of the nail in our not recommending this community. But here's the things that occurred um, in the community over time. Maybe I should make a second video about this, but I'll kind of include all of this inclusive in this video. So from the time we moved in to the community, it was great when we initially moved in. They had a good staff. Uh, by the time we uh, left there, most of the staff was gone. There was only one person left that I remember from the original staff when we left there. And there was like two people that I had really good experiences with there towards the end. One of them was a lady named Alexandria, or Alexandra, sorry, Alexandra, not Alexandria, Alexandra. She was very nice and always very helpful. And then there's a lady named Maggie who really helped me with some things. But the rest of the staff, and Maggie was kind of she came in a little later. Um, and we were there for only 18 months. But the staff, the overturn of the staff was very large during the time we were there. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. That means that not everybody's there or stays there, which I know things move around in communities, but when there's not consistency, it impacts a lot of things. I also had a good experience with Guillermo, who was originally one of the assistant managers and then became, or not assistant manager, but he was the assistant. Um, it's the assistant groundskeeper. They did more to groundskeeping. He was the assistant manager of the maintenance team, basically, and then he ended up becoming the full manager of the maintenance team. But we had good experiences with him. So, and then we originally moved in, we had good experiences with a lady named Katie who moved on to another Camden property downtown. But anyways, the staff changed over, which is kind of disappointing when you see a staff turnover like that. It says something when you have a staff turnover like that. It's something you should be aware of. The other thing that came about was the gates would be broken a number of times, especially like walk-in gates and the drive-in gates to get into the community. So, which means that the security element of the property was virtually non-existent because anybody could just drive in and out, and that happened a lot. But they already had a security issue with the gates anyway, because Camden Shadow Brook is sort of designed in a very odd-looking horseshoe shape, because on the east end of it, of the horseshoe, where you on the point of the horseshoe, you would go in and there's no offices there, and it's buildings 21, 22, and things like that. If you go back they start getting larger into the 40s and things like that. And the 40s, and then back into the 30s, and then all the way around, if you could get around, because it's a very twisty designed and just not very intuitive way to drive around the community. And you get back on the other end of the horseshoe, which is where we lived, and it's like 2 through 10, but then it jumps to another digit. So it's not cohesive. So it's not like you can drive in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, and then all the way around you make it to building 48. It goes 20 and something on this side, and then the early numbers on this side, and then 30s and 40s are all on the back. So it's a very weird design. But in that back section on the right side of the horseshoe is what I would call it. They had a second pool and a second hot tub, and they had a an opening there that led into this sort of little wooded area with a little creek on it, and that connected to a park over there. And the problem was the gate for the park had no lock on it. So anyone could come through that gate and actively be in the community. And it's a little wooded area back there. And many wooded areas are where a lot of people who are homeless sleep. Because, you know, for whatever reason, it's maybe they feel more secure there, or they don't get bothered as much by people telling them to go sleep somewhere else or whatever else. But they would have people camping out in that area of the back section of that of the community. And in addition to them coming in and sleeping in that area, there was a pool very near that area, the back pool, and the back pool with the hot tub. And they would homeless would jump the gate or jump the fence for the pool, and they would be bathing inside of the pool and inside of the hot tub. And eventually the point where they eliminated the hot tub entirely and covered it over because they were using it as a bathing spot, and they were trying to prevent people from doing that. So that's one thing. You should know that because it's a wooded area, there were a number of snake spottings at that community. Another thing that occurred there is that property had constant notifications of issues with Cadillac converters being stolen from cars on the property, sometimes 2 at night, other times just straight break-ins of cars. And then I want to make sure I give you everything. The internet, which was Spectrum, which they were trying to transfer Spectrum over to, they said, you know, the fastest one that Spectrum had, which is, I don't know, they called it, you know, the 1G or whatever else. So I'm going to defend Spectrum in a second, but they kept saying there were problems over there, and they were having problems with the internet, and we constantly had problems with the internet going down every couple of days. And then we had no choice but to have that. I'll talk about that in a second as well. We had no choice but to have Spectrum. We could have gotten another service, but we would still have to pay for Spectrum because they had a bulk requirement that they had Camden has a bulk contract with Spectrum, which required us to have it. So we had to pay $65 a month for Spectrum. Whether we used it or not was up to us, but we had to have it and pay for it on top of our rent. So our rent would be one thing, and you could say, okay, well, I'm going to get the apartment for $19.81 a month. But when it came to additional fees, there was a $65 fee for Spectrum because they had a bulk contract with them requiring everybody in the community to have it. And they had a $37 fee, as I recall, for valet trash. Okay. So let's just finish Spectrum first. So Spectrum went down every couple of days. They kept saying, well, they're upgrading. And, you know, they may have been upgrading a lot, but we constantly had issues. There were constant daily digests. If I need to go back and revisit it, we have all these daily digest posts that were on the bulletin boards talking about the theft that was occurring, about packages being left at the wrong places, packages being stolen, uh, Spectrum going out on a consistent basis because, like me, a lot of people work from home. It was a horrible experience with Spectrum over there. But I have to say, in defense of Spectrum, I will say this: in the new community we're in right now, we pay more for Spectrum. It's the same thing. It's because we don't have that bulk contract, but we pay independently for Spectrum over here. And I have not experienced any major issues with Spectrum here. And I have the exact same plan here that I did over there. I just pay $30 more, or I don't know, $33, $34 more. But I didn't have any of the kind of problems over here with Spectrum that I've had over there. I cannot tell you one time here that I have noticed Spectrum go out in the entire time I've been here. And I've been here for the better part of 2 months now. They've been very consistent. They've also had incredible follow through. So whoever's maintaining the team over there, observing that property, the Spectrum is just garbage. It's garbage, and that's a great transition into garbage. So they had valet trash there. Now, if you're going to have valet trash at a property, very rarely, if ever, are you going to get them to work on the weekends, meaning Friday and Saturday nights. They don't want to work. For some reason, it's like, well, we want our weekend too. Well, everybody wants their weekend, but Fridays and Saturdays are when people develop the most amount of garbage. Because of they have get-togethers on Fridays, because during the rest of the week people are working. But on Fridays and Saturdays, that's when you kind of get more garbage because you're entertaining with friends, whatever the case may be, and that's when you're going to get more garbage. But they don't pick up garbage on Fridays and Saturdays. This is not just Camden, by the way. This is a lot of communities. But this is why I dislike valet trash. Because if you're going to offer it and require people to have it, then you should have it on the days where there's the most traffic and or the most activity with it. Because they still have dumpsters on site, but then the dumpsters have all other kinds of issues with, people digging in the dumpsters, looking for things and all kinds of stuff. And that's happened on a couple of occasions over there too. But the valet trash, in addition to not delivering on picking up on Fridays and Saturdays, there were occasions where, or more than a few occasions, by the way, where there's their normal holiday days, and they'll say we don't do Thanksgiving, we don't do Christmas, we don't do Easter. I mean, they would take out. They don't do Halloween. Like Halloween is some crazy holiday that you need to have off for trash pickup because Halloween is a national holiday of some kind. That's absurd. Part of working is you have people say, okay, listen, we're going to work on the 31st and you're going to pick up garbage. I don't want to. I got to go out and dress up. That's absurd. It's just part of a job. I mean, you're not doing it until 12 o'clock in the morning. That didn't pick up the garbage until after midnight at night, even though they required us to have it out by 8 o'clock. They didn't pick up until after midnight because I worked late into the night. And I knew when they picked up the garbage because sometimes they would set up dogs in the community. But you had to have their trash, and then if there was the slightest bit of bad weather, then they wouldn't pick up the garbage, which meant if they canceled, and they would only give you hours notice, by the way, sometimes when they weren't going to pick up garbage, which meant, okay, you're on your own. You got to go pick up your garbage or keep it in your apartment till the next day. Well, I mean, how do you expect a place to stay clean if you expect their garbage to stay overnight any longer than necessary? Which means you have to then drag it to the dumpster. There's not that many dumpsters on property, by the way. I think there was like 4. There was that. So and you had 48 buildings with, multi-stories on the in there. So I mean, it's not exactly it's not exactly convenient to get the dumpsters there, put it that way. We happen to be close to one, by the way, but a lot of other people were not. So the trash service they were using, the valet trash service they were using was just horrible. We always had people having issues with the valet trash. In addition, we had this one coming up, which is there was a note at one point where a bag of garbage was found in the bushes. It occurred more than once, I know, but I know at least one time this was noted. There was a bag of garbage found in the bushes, and the community put out a notice saying that they would be inspecting these bags, and if they found out who it was related to, they were going to give them a fine for for having garbage in the bushes. Well, a lot of the times the reason they were having this issue with the garbage in the bushes is because they would have lazy valet trash pickup. They would pick it up, and they if it wasn't going to be convenient for them to pick up a certain piece of item or whatever, they'd probably just leave it behind themselves. Because I can't think of anybody who would have valet trash and then go, okay, I have valet trash, but I'll walk out over here and throw it in the bushes so it's not next to my apartment. I mean, what would be the logic in doing that? Now, is it possible that people threw their trash in the bushes? Maybe if they were irritated enough that they weren't close enough to a dumpster and they didn't want to deal with it, they figured, well, maybe the maintenance team will come around and pick it up. And if they did that, I'm not talking about those people, but there were so many instances with poor experiences with the valet trash there that I would not be surprised if the valet trash dropped the ball and just left something in the bushes and didn't care, who was, you know, who got the blame for it. The other thing that's really weird is if you're going to dig into someone's bag of garbage, that's kind of weird. If you're going to, because the only way you'd find out who was attached to if you dug into the bag of garbage. So if you're going to dig into a bag of garbage, and there's posts on their bulletin board about that they actually send out daily digest. So this is not just like me making it up, but so there was posts about how the community said that they would fine you if they found out that there was a bag of garbage that belonged to your apartment out in the bushes or whatever. That's one thing. They had a dog park over there, which I took my dogs to for a while to get some exercise, but it got to a point where because they're near like a creek area and the water and things like that, at one point, someone's, and then we'll get into their names, started bringing water, a pan over to the dog park, and they would connect a hose to one of the nozzles on the wall, and they would put water in this pan for dogs to drink. Well, don't ever go to a dog park where there is a community water there's a community water bucket like that, because they only may check, and they didn't do this, they didn't offer this with my service animals when we originally moved in there. They didn't ask for this, they just asked for proof of service for animals. But even if you get your pet records late, up to date before you move in, if you live there for 4 years, they don't ask for a renewal of your pet records. So you have no idea if people have been keeping up their pet's health over the course of time. So if they share a community water bowl with other dogs, then it's entirely possible that they could pick up whatever another dog has if it hasn't been treated for a condition. You know what I mean? It's just too dangerous, and it's not healthy, and I don't encourage you to let them do it anytime. It's just not good for their pet health, or your just animal health in general. Okay, so mine aren't necessarily pets, but are service animals, but I'm speaking from a general sense. And I warned the manager about it, the newest manager. I warned her that this was occurring, and she said she was going to go over there or have someone go over there and take care of it. And I went over the next time, and the pan was gone. But then when I go back the next time, there was another pan there, and there was another, people were filling up with water again. But then I saw it again and again, and it was evident that they were not going to make sure that they stopped that water from being left there. So in addition to the pet health issue, those water pans being left out like that attract flies and mosquitoes and all kinds of things. And those things could bite your dogs. They could ultimately create the basis for fleas on your dogs. So it's just not good. And the fact that it wasn't monitored better and there wasn't any consequences for doing that, and they weren't monitoring it and making sure that those people couldn't activate those water spigots, that it was, uh, and fined for that, is an issue with that community. So the other thing, and the last thing that I can think of off the top of my head that I think is worth mentioning before we get into this report, is that the flooring, and this is not just Camden Shadow Brook, by the way, this is a lot of communities, so be aware of it and document everything in writing. But we had, in the first unit we lived in there, we had people who lived downstairs who were prolific, it's the best word I could think, prolific pot smokers. Okay. And I mean, they probably made Johnny Depp look like, he was, a Boy Scout. They were prolific pot smokers. And to the point where the odor seeped through the walls. So the way it worked, it works at Camden Shadow Brook, is there are no external staircases. Every second floor apartments have private staircases. So when you would go into the doors are kind of 90-degree angled when you see them. So they're like in an L. They beat it an L. So on one side of the L is one door for the bottom floor usually, and on the right side or left side, depending on how the building is structured, is the entrance to the private staircase entryway for the second level apartment. And because they were smoking so much pot, it was seeping through the walls into where our bottom floor entryway closet was at. So you would walk in our door and it was like secondhand pot smoke, consumption. If I just stood there for long enough, I probably could have been very, very happy if I really wanted to smoke pot. But they weren't even smoking good pot. I mean, they were smoking skunk weed. So we told them about it over and over again. Pot, technically, to the best of my knowledge, is still not legal to smoke in this city without a fine. I mean, I know they're not going to put you in jail, and I'm not really worried about them putting you in jail. But on property, smoking pot, we told them about it several times, and we told them about it voice-wise, by the way. And all they did was, all the tenants downstairs would say was, "No, we're not smoking pot," and they just let it go. They never did anything about it, to the point where one time I went to get a piece of mail or something. And I remember Katie was there at the time. This is before Katie moved on to the other community. We were in 808 at this time. And I asked her to walk back to the apartment with me because I wanted to show her how bad the smell was. And she walked in and she was like, "Oh, wow, I can smell that. It is bad." But unless they really do something about it, you're just going to constantly deal with it, and the walls are too thin. So if you have any pot smokers or heavy smokers, it's going to seep through your walls, especially into the private staircase entrances for apartments. Just be aware of that. Any strong odors will seep through those walls. Strong paint odors can seep through the walls, anything like that. So just be aware of that. The other thing is, and I'm sure we made noise, not even trying to, because the insulation between the floors is horrible. Horrible. I mean, you could just be walking around upstairs and it would be bad. And I know what it's like to live in a community where the people are intentionally, you know, showing no consideration for the people below them. But there are people who are not like that at all, who are just trying to live in their apartment. They're just doing the normal walking around in their apartment, but the insulation is so bad, it sounds like they're stomping because it's just so you can hear this. I don't know if you can hear my hand on my table, but it would just sound like that all the time. And that was when people weren't even trying to make noise. But if they are rambunctious, which we had in our second unit, we lived beneath a family with two children, and the children were they were running around constantly, and their parents were screaming at them all the time, to the point where there was actually a notice on the bulletin board talking about how people need to be respectful of sound in the community. Because even though we lived beneath them, apparently people in the rest of the building too that were in the parameters could also hear them. Now they to the best of my knowledge, they were still there when we left. We gave up after a point because we had told them so many times that there were problems with this, but they just were like, whatever, that's fine, dude. They I think it's the point where they just ignore the problem because, what are they going to do? Kick them out? They should, but were they going to? Probably not. And that gets into a whole other dynamic of things that I don't want to step into right now. But there's a lot of reasons they wouldn't kick them out. But children running around, the floors were just the insulation between the floors is so thin. And I'll tell you the reason I even say I know when there's problems with noise, because I lived in a community at 3000 Sage, and at 3000 Sage, uh, I lived in a place where the floor above me, the folks would actually have the police called on them because they would have like hardcore music playing loud. It wasn't always hardcore music. Sometimes it was softer music, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But to the point where they would shake the ceiling so bad that like one of the glass globes that you can have over your lights fixtures, it was actually shaken free and exploded on the floor in my foyer because of the noise. But I remember, and this is what I'm saying, it's not just Camden, but just be aware if you're going to live on the bottom floor, at Camden included, that be very aware you're going to have a lot of noise from upstairs. Even if the people are trying to be quiet, it's going to be a lot of noise. And the people and the flooring is so thin that if they're playing music even slightly over, normal volume because of hearing challenges or whatever, I could actually sing along to my neighbor's music in my other apartment, not at Camden, just showing you how thin floors can be. I could sing along to Smooth Operator with the people upstairs in one of my units. And the similar thing here, because there's just no insulation. So they have carpet on the floors, but carpet doesn't cover it because the problem is not that the carpet's not padded. The problem is when it hits the wood underneath it, there's no like major support between the floors. So there's a little separation, but there's not enough like bracing, which would be very hard to do based on the kind of flooring they use to keep it from kind of sounding like a pound and like a weird motion because there's just not enough insulation between the floors. There's not enough protection. They met the standards for building, but it's just not. So just be aware. That's not just Camden, but I'm telling you it was there, and that's part of my report here. The floor separation's horrible. Horrible. And then, like I said, we had people jumping into pools that were homeless. We had the theft going on over there. People in the pools after hours, which I'm not really as worried about people in being at pools after hours if they live there. But because the security gates, there were problems with the security gates. It you just didn't know who was in the pool and if they belonged there. Because if homeless people can jump the fence and go in there and party after hours, then other people can do it too, and they don't even have to live there. And there were people who were jumping the gates and going into the pools after hours. And obviously, it wasn't, rocket science to do it. And numerous people reported people going into the pools after hours, especially younger people. Now, the reason it was a problem is because the walls were thin enough to the point where if they were out in the pool and they were making noises, you could hear it. So the insulation was a problem. So those are things that I just want you to be aware of when it comes to Camden Shadow, because I feel like I need to say that so you're aware of those things leading into this report. So we already had a lot of issues. This is the reason we left, but this is where they got us on this end with when we moved out. So I'm gonna show you a report that they sent us saying the charges that we had to pay. Let's see here.
Select sharing down
Let's see.
Optimize share screen button.
Okay. So this is the report that they did for us on Camden Shadow Brook. I'm gonna try and do a little bit of a thing here. Oh, don't want to do that. Let's see. I'm gonna just kind of scroll in here to make it a little bigger. Okay. Okay, so this is a report. My roommate's name is on there, but you can see this is the inspection report, and it was done. It was issued on. It was assigned to someone on the beginning of. Looks like it says 1/6 of 23, which is we didn't move out till 3/6 of 23, but it was assigned. And maybe that says 3. I can't tell, but it says it was completed by someone named Hugo, which is one of the maintenance team, and it was done on 3/7. And then on the bottom it says it was updated on modified on 3/20. So I'm going to take you through. You can see some of these pictures. So now I have a video of the apartment community that I filmed on the day of move out when we moved out of the apartment completely, and I had got everything out of the apartment and vacuumed and all that jazz like that. I got a video of it, and so I'll put a link to it below. It's not very far down the list of uploads on this channel because I haven't done videos in a while, but this is the pictures that they took of the apartment. Okay. And so a lot of them are crappy, by the way, because they don't use good lighting. It's kind of dark with shadows because of the blinds and stuff like that. But this is what they're basing their charges off to us. And the big charges are painting and replacing the carpet. I will note that when we first moved into this apartment on the 1st of April, we noticed a lot of problems when we first moved in. So the day that we moved into this apartment community was the last day of the manager who was there before us, whose name was Alex. And we called him in, telling him about all the problems that we were having with this apartment. The floors didn't look clean. There were bubbles on the hardwood flooring. There were a variety of issues, laundry room issues and the like. We complained about some problems with outlets on the walls, the bar top in this apartment 202, the countertops are kind of a rough texture. They're not sanded, so it's not a smooth surface on top. And there was a big old stain, like a discoloration on the counter when we first moved in that was noted in our inspection report. That's why they're not charging us for the issues with the countertops or the flooring in the front, because we actually put that down in the report. We should have put the carpet down too, but they didn't. You'll also see in these pictures there's some little pieces of blue tape that are on the wall. Now, those pieces of blue tape I actually put there because I was showing them where we had made holes for hanging pictures and such. So that's not them that put the little things on the wall. That's the blue tape is me. It's painter's tape that I put on the wall, if you can see those pictures with it. But as you can see, there's a lot of dark areas on the walls. So I'm going through this just to let you kind of see all the pictures. These are all the pictures they took. They said they took 71 pictures or something like that. To glance there. So what we're running into here is what they're saying is that they said they had to repaint the wall. Now, if you look through these pictures and you look through my video, there are about 3 or 4 spots where I can say there were kind of dark areas on the wall, whether it be from like a piece of furniture maybe having an issue on the wall or something, being against the wall, or a black mark from dye from a piece of furniture or something, the sweat when it's hot or something, the furniture sweating on the walls or something. But most walls have nothing like that. Okay. Most of the walls have no issues like that whatsoever. It's an exaggeration to say that all the walls had problems. When I talked to the manager last week about this, she said that the painting was supposed to last 24 months, but it only lasted 11 months with us. Well, we would have to be doing some heavy stuff to the walls to cause that kind of problems. And I can tell you, we didn't have the heat bad enough to where things would sweat that much, because I can't stand a lot of heat. So it stayed colder in our apartment than it stayed hot, because we kept it at like 68 or 70 on a consistent basis. So we were not people who had a lot of heat or a lot of potential sweat getting on our walls. So it's hard to,
7 of 14.
based on their pictures and based on my video, there might have been areas where you needed to look at to maybe cover certain paint, but they said they needed to do a full repaint, and the full repaint costs $134. Well, I can tell you that also means very clearly that if they had to do a full repaint for $134, they're probably using really cheap paint, because to paint a 1,198 square foot apartment full repaint for $135, which is what they say they had to pay for it, that means they used really cheap paint, because otherwise their labor would be ridiculous. Their labor would not exist. I mean, this is people, if they only charge $135 for doing it, we're talking about these people going in and doing one coat on the wall and maybe minor touch-ups to make sure it's covered up. There is no, if they had to do a substantial repaint, then it wouldn't have been that big of it, that expensive. That's not that expensive for painting, but they said they had to do a full repaint, which means they're probably using really cheap paint, by the way.
8 of 14.
So I'm getting down. I'm just going to show you all the pictures. I'll go back up and point out some things in a minute, but I'm just showing you how all these pictures, you can see a lot of shadows from where
14.
a lot of shadows from where the lighting is bad, because they're using incandescent pictures and such, or incandescent lighting. And incandescent lighting creates shadows everywhere, and then they would open the blinds, and blinds would do it. But most of the stuff you can tell whether there's carpet issues, and I know there's carpet issues, by the way, but we'll get into that in a second.
Page 10 of 14.
There's carpet issues, but carpet issues we had, they're saying, is because of pet stains and high traffic. Well, high traffic, which I'll talk about in a second. I'll get back all of that in a second. But you see all these pictures here. These are all the pictures that they took. And there's page 12. You see a few pictures there. And then you're down here. Just show it to you real quickly here. So,
page 14 of 14.
Did we do any more living? I'm going to go back up here to the top here now. I'll just do it this way. All right, I'm going to go back up the top. So, did we do any more living in this apartment than anyone else? Did we do anything crazy, have more parties, do anything like that? No. And the people that we had over were not crazy people who do a bunch of stuff. We had a bunch of sighted, impaired, and blind people come over, and then family members. But we never did any like wild parties or anything like that. Like our partying was like, sitting around playing games. So we weren't doing anything majorly any more involved here than anywhere else. And I walked my dogs. I took them for walks around. I took them for dog park for a while, and then I would just take them for walks because the I didn't trust that dog park anymore, like I was talking about earlier, because of the the sanitary nature of it. But so just to get back to it here and to focus on the report now, it says it was done on 3/6, and then it says, or 3/7, and then it was modified on 3/20. So if you go down here to where their report is,
Page 2 of 14.
it talks about how they had to do a full paint, and it was $134 or $35. That is because they said they had to do a full repaint.
3 of 14.
Now, if you looked at all the pictures, or you went back and looked at these pictures, or you looked at the video where I shot the whole walls, you may see some marks, but there's like 3 or 4. I know there was one by the wall near the master bedroom, which is where there was a love seat pushed up against it. So if the love seat sweated color, it might have put some discoloration there. So I'm not going to deny that's possible. Over by the wall, by the door, I don't know what would cause discoloration there. That we had hooks there where my roommate hung her backpack and her cane and all kinds of stuff like that. So there was not a lot of reason to be a mark on the wall, but there may have been some kind of discoloration. I don't know what caused it, if there was. And then there was, well, I think you could see the discoloration on the wall. I'm not doubting it's there, but I'm just saying. And then there was discoloration in the corner turn from the den, living area, into the hallway leading to the 2 smaller bedrooms. So I don't doubt that occurred. Okay, I'm not doubting those at all.
Page 4 of 14.
But where I'm drawing it is when they keep saying that there was so much that they had to repaint the walls, and it said, if you saw earlier, it saw where it said full repaint on the walls.
Page 5 of 14.
So that's there here. I'm just showing you kind of the bottom and tops of the pages. Okay. So let's see here. We go down.
Page 6 of 14.
All right. So here's where I wanted to get into
7 of 14.
some of their thing. Let's see here. Is it here? Let's see.
Page 6 of 14.
Right here, I think is where it's at. I'm gonna try and zoom in on the screen to show you. And I have to invert it because I have a side issue. So I want to make sure I show you what I'm seeing here on the page. Yeah, it's right here. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, just so I can see it. You may not be able, it may be grayscaled out to where you can see it. Okay, so on this section, it talks about carpet. It says carpet. Full replacement with a question mark. And over here, it says replace. Then if you go over here to where it says why, let's see, it says too many stains, pet odor, and high traffic. Okay. Well, let's just talk about something for a second when it comes to this. Okay, so first of all,
Camden Shadow Brook.
first of all, high traffic happens in every apartment. They're talking, and the pictures you see for our door from our apartment on our carpet, especially, the high traffic is all at the doorways into the carpet. You're not going to get away from high traffic in an apartment because your doorways you're walking in and out of constantly. Okay. So how is it and if you look at other carpet pictures, you'll see there's not a lot of issues that are major with our carpet. There's not a lot of major issues, but there is a lot. There is high traffic at the doorways, but that's normal. in an apartment? Are we going to be charged because they chose to put down carpet on a floor, which means it's constantly going to get high traffic? I mean, do they expect us to jump back and forth between the doorways so that we can't, we don't leave high traffic marks at the entryway? That's an absurd thing. Your doorways are the ones that are always going to show the most traffic, including on carpet. So either use better carpet or stop expecting people to pay because you want to replace crappy carpet every time you turn around. But let's just say they said too many stains. Well, if you looked at those pictures, how many stains did you see? Look at the video I shot of the apartment. How many stains do you see? Do you think it's worth them saying they need to replace all the carpet? One of the other things that was said to me by the manager is that in all of the bedrooms, they said they had to replace the carpet. Okay, well, even if they had to replace carpet because of pet, which means my dogs, my service animals, even if they had to do it as a result of that, they would not have had to do it in all of the bedrooms, because 2 of the bedrooms were bedrooms. The 3rd bedroom we used as storage, and my service animals were never in that room. Never in that room. They never spent any time in that room. It was never a place where they hung out. The only thing that was stored in there that was related to my service animals was extra leashes and dog food. That was it. But as far as them being in the space, they never existed in that space. It was off limits to them because it was storage. It was storage and sort of a mini library where we could go and sit and do things. But most of the time it was just storage. We didn't even use it. I stored extra plates and pans and pots and food items. I had these like collapsible shelves you could build and store things on. So we didn't even use it for anything. And we didn't have leaks or any crazy stuff like that. It was just storage. That apartment, that a 3rd room, which they actually call the 2nd on this one, that 3rd room, a month before we moved, there was a drainage leak. Hang on one second.
Screen inbox notepad software update.
This is a crazy thing. That annoying software update. Sorry, my apologies. So on this 3rd bedroom, a month before we moved, there was that we used for storage. The apartment. Let me go back. The 3rd bedroom, which we used for storage, a month before we moved, there was a water damage to the floor, and it was a result of a crack in one of the drain pipes or something behind the washer dryer. So it seeped onto the floor into the guest bathroom, and because it was heavy, it moved and worked its way into that 3rd bedroom, because there's obviously at least a minor slope that causes it to go down, and it went into that 3rd bedroom where the carpet was right by the doorway. Now, I told them about it. They came in. It was actually one of their make-ready people who said, this is where the problem is. It's coming from here and coming into this room, because they couldn't figure out where it was at. They kept saying, oh, well, you spilled water, or your extra freezer was leaking, but there was no water near the extra freezer, which is in that 3rd bedroom. They tried to blame it on it, but that was not where it was coming from. It was coming from the walls behind the washer dryer going into the guest bathroom, and then because it was a mild slope, it would cause it to go into that 3rd bedroom. And in that 3rd bedroom, that's where it started to stain the carpet by the entryway. Now, they lifted up the carpet and they removed the padding, but they did not replace the carpet. As a matter of fact, it took over a week before someone came back to put the padding underneath it, but they never replaced the carpet. So they tried to blame it for us. I told them, look, my service animals were never in there. They were never allowed in there. That was only storage. And she came back and said, oh, well, I'll take that off because I'm going to take you at your word on that. You don't have to take my word. Look at the pictures. Look at the video. I sent them a video. I kept trying to send them the video, and finally they got it apparently. But I showed them where there were issues with I told them about the issues that occurred with that carpet, and they have it in their service orders because they kept sending us service orders, and I have that in my records if I really needed to get into a debate with them about it. But she said she was going to take off $130 for that. So there's still the better part of $1,500. She said that part of our issue was we had a $400 and something water bill. So that's the other thing you should be aware of. They overcharged a lot on water over there. Our water bill isn't nearly as high here as it was over there. The water bill for a 2-bedroom, because they're like dividing it up between the apartments, ours was, because of the size of our apartment, we paid over $100 a month in water bill. It was just, there was just so many costs you incurred there that were a little outrageous. But anyways, that's just an FYI on that part. So as you see here on this thing, like I said, I'll try and do it to where you can see it. Take it back down some, because that's not going to work too much. Okay,
Page 6 of
I'm going to
14.
go back to take off the invert colors, because some people don't need that. But if you want to see this, so you can see where it says full carpet replacement question, and it says replace, and then over here it says too many stains, high traffic. Well, the high traffic, and it says too many stains, pet odors, and high traffic. Okay, so that's fine. They're going to say high traffic. I can't discount that concept of high traffic. Too many stains, I don't believe that's true. I think you can look at the carpet and tell there's not that many stains. I vacuumed a lot. The carpeting was cheap, but that's fine. So I'm going to take it back out of this again. But now I want to show you something else. This is where the tricky thing comes into this thing, and I have questions about it. So now we're on, that was page,
7 of
this is
14.
page 7. And that was on page 6 where that notice was about replacing the carpet. And now we're going to go to page 8.
Page 8 of
Okay,
14.
now page 8, right down here, it's a list of the things they did when they checked the apartments. Okay. If you look in here, it says service operates, any odors in the apartment. And to the right of it, it says no. So now, which is it? It says any obvious odor, any odors in unit, and it says no to the right of it. Okay, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit just so you can see it.
Zoomed in. 175% surge.
Second here.
Eight,
On my,
refresh.
okay, so
Control plus R.
right here,
14.
you can see where it says service operating, any odors in unit, and it says no. Okay, so, and I know that this is talking about when they entered the apartment, not from us, because below it is another category that's obviously about the apartment when they were inspecting it. And it's also a similar thing. So they're saying above it, it says there was pet odors in the apartment, but now they're saying there was no odors in the apartment. So which is it? Okay, that's number one. Now we're going to go into the other thing that I found fascinating about it. This is their inspection report, by the way. I didn't write the inspection report, by the way. They wrote the inspection report. So now we're going down and they're showing the apartment, showing more pictures of it. They get into the bathrooms and all kinds of stuff like that.
Page 11 of 14.
Page 11, and then it's page 12. And if you looked at any of this stuff and you see the reviews of the checklists of things here. On this page, it talks about how they ask, was there any problems with the carpet? And it says no. The actual page says there was no problems with the carpet. Okay. So if there's no problems with the carpet, why'd you have to replace it? They marked it off as not having a problem. There's no's up and down this little column on the right is no's up and down it. So no, nothing obvious on the carpet. That's the second person. That's the master bedroom. Wait a second, make sure this is correct.
Page 12 of 14. Page 13 of 14.
This is the other bedroom. It talks about carpet. Is there any problem with the carpet? And says no again. So we have no problems with the carpet. In this third bedroom, there was 3 areas that had carpeting. Those were all the bedrooms, or all the, bedrooms / den, whatever you want to call it, guest bedrooms. That's the only area where there was carpeting. Everything else was a vinyl flooring. It says no problem with the carpet there. And then on 14 of 14, on this one, which was the other bedroom, talks about the carpet again. Was there any problems with the carpeting? And it says no. So if you look at it, there's one spot where it said they had to replace the carpet because there were too many stains, pet odors, and high traffic. But in the rest of their report down here, it doesn't show anything about any problems with the carpeting. As far as carpeting is concerned, it says no. No major problems with the carpeting. So here's what I think happened. And I'll go back up here to the top now. So let's see, make sure I'm doing this correctly.
Page 13 of 14.
And then there's page 14, and you can see that. That's page 14. And you can see there, if you look on it, it says carpeting, and it says that says no. It talks about carpeting issues, says no. Page 13 of 14. It asks about carpeting again, and it says no. Page 12.
Page 13 of 14.
12, it says also stuff about carpeting, and it says no. So what's going on where there's no problems here when they took pictures,
Page 10 of 14.
but
Page 9 of 14. Page 8 of 14. Page 7 of 14.
but when you
Page 6
get
of
down
14. Page 7 of 14. Page 8 of 14.
but when you get down here, it says that they said that they had to replace the carpet because of high traffic, too many stains, and pet odor. But here on page 8, which is the page we need to reference here, when it says any odors in unit, it says no. So this report makes it look, on the latter part of this report, it makes it look like there was nothing significant in our apartment. Nothing significant going on in our apartment. It's only when you get up here to page 6.
Page 7 of 14. Page 6 of 14.
It's only when you get up to page 6 here
Page 6 of 14.
when it looks like they changed it and changed it to where there was problems and they had to replace the carpeting. Because everywhere else it says there's no problem. It says there's no odors. It's the only place where it says too many stains, pet odors, and high traffic. Well, high traffic, I can't do anything about walking in and out of a bedroom door. That's absurd. Am I supposed to tiptoe across? Are we supposed to tiptoe back and forth across the floors? This is the only section. And this is where I think it happened. I think it happened up here.
Page 5 of 14. Page 4 of 14.
See right there where it says inspected on 3/7. I think they went in there on the 7th and they looked at it and they marked off that major part of the list at the bottom where all the carpets were in the pages 12, 13, and 14, and pages 8 where they said any odors? Nope. Was there any carpeting issues in any of the rooms? They said nope. But when you get up here and they change it on page 6, I think it's because on this 20th date when they went in there, that's when they decided they were going to charge us for the carpeting. They decided, oh, you know what? We'll get away with it. Who's gonna do anything? People just suck it up and take it. Well, we may have to pay this, but I want you to be aware that this occurs. Be very careful of communities like this. Do not, under any circumstances, leave a unit without having them look at it and make sure that you record the experience with them, especially at this property, especially with this company, because you can't trust them. I'll tell you one last thing before I end this video, because I know it's very long. When I contacted them originally about this bill that they sent us, I spoke to the manager named Christina. That's the current manager now. And I told her that when we moved in there that we had mentioned the problems, and my roommate, who's totally blind, felt the carpet and said it didn't feel new. And we issued that concern, but only verbally to the manager, that it did not feel new. It, like I told you, he said it was the last day he was there. Alex said it was the last day he was there and that he was moving on to somewhere else. When I and I know because he was the one in the room with the maintenance folks coming in to try and fix things in the apartment because there was problems with the trim on the side of the bar. We talked about how the counter was discolored. We talked about the bubbles in the vinyl flooring in front of the refrigerator because means there was already water damage there, by the way. Um, we talked about all these things, these issues, and then we mentioned the carpet to him, but we went through the obvious things that were problems on the flooring and such. And that's the stuff we put on the inspection. The carpet was kind of a general, it just felt old. And I can't tell by looking at it, but it felt old. And I mentioned this to the person, the manager, Christina, and she said, well, you don't have it written on your report. Well, no, that's true. We didn't write on the report. We did verbally express it. But she also said, well, he wasn't the manager here on the first. I was the manager here on the first. Well, then why weren't you in my apartment? Because all these things that you did service requests for and everything were on April 1st of 2022 when we moved in there. And you weren't in that apartment. Alex was in that apartment, standing there right with me, talking with me. I talked to Alexandra in the office a couple of times on that day about issues going on in the apartment. I'm not pulling Alexandra into it other than saying that I talked to her on the phone, but Alex was there and he was the one handling it that day. Whether that was, and he said it was his last day, by the way. I remember him saying it was his last day, but he was there. Christina was not in that apartment. So if she was supposed to be the manager there, why wasn't she in that apartment? Because you can look back at service requests. There's an audit you can do for service requests, and it would go back to that day. You could go back and find it. But she almost challenged me on saying that she was the manager there and that Alex wouldn't have been there, but he absolutely was. And I would put my hand on a stack of Bibles and swear to that in court. Look, I'm not trying to say this and complain about this because I'm trying to get out of the payment because I don't think they have the integrity to acknowledge that this is probably garbage, that this is probably BS. I honestly don't think they have the integrity to do it. Just my opinion. But I can tell you that their report conflicts itself. The bulk of the report conflicts everything on page 6 and on this other page, I think it's page 5, where it says that they needed to do a full repaint. The pictures, the videos show that they could have done touch-ups. And if they did $134 worth of painting, I don't believe that's a full repaint. That is the cheap. I mean, could you imagine how much were you paying per hour for people to paint the walls? That would be it. I have never met anyone in my life who would paint an 1,198 square foot apartment. I'm going to get out of the sharing thing here. Oh, gotta get off the screen first off.
You have started screen.
I have never met anyone in my life who would paint 1,198 square foot apartment and only charge you $134, including labor. That would be like me doing this and just walking around the apartment, just constantly putting a brush up, a roller up and down the wall once, and maybe going back a couple times if I saw that I missed something here or there. $134, but if they want to do $134 for that, that's one thing. The carpet replacement, that's where I think it's jacked, and I don't believe it because their report conflicts itself. The bulk of the report, pages 8 down to 14, specifically related to flooring and odors and all that, doesn't say anything about damage to the carpet. Doesn't say anything about odors. She said that they had to do it, and also it mentions, was there any pests? That was the thing before service operating. Was there? It said service operating, and it said any odors in the unit, and it said no. And then below it said pests, meaning fleas, ticks, bed bugs, anything like that. And it also said no. If you go back and look at that, So it didn't say anything about issues with that, but they're saying it does. They're now saying that they had to do deep enzyme treatments, which mean what they're saying is it was beyond the carpet. It was into the concrete. They had to do deep enzyme treatments because of the service animals, because of the odor. But it said there was no odor. Their report in the initial look said no odor. I guarantee you, well, I can't guarantee you, but I would, if I was a betting person, I bet you they changed that report so that they could try and make more money off of it. And they can show me any bills they want to, saying, "Oh, well, we had this where we replaced the carpet, or we showed this about the charges for the carpet and all these things like that." They may replace the carpet. They may have replaced the carpet when we moved out, but the reason they had to replace the carpet was not because of my service animals. Their report doesn't even suggest that there was anything that my service animals did other than that one little line that says too many stains, pet odor, high traffic. And the high traffic is unavoidable. That could be why you replace the carpet, but don't hold that against us because you used crappy carpet, because you used cheap carpet that couldn't stand up to high traffic motion. That's a cost of doing business and having a community. And you're charging a ridiculous amount of money for rent anyway in Austin. So the fact that you're saying you needed it, but they're basically charging us the better part of a month's rent for that carpet replacement with only one line that says there's problems and everything beneath it contradicts it, there's something wrong with that. There's something very wrong with that. Just be aware if you're dealing with this community or you're dealing with this company in specific, be very aware of those issues I've told you. With this community specifically, they don't have the security elements are not really in place there. The floors are just like in other communities are very thin. The insulation between the floors. There's been a number of occasions of theft, cars being broken into, major issues with the internet going in and out. Even after 18 months, we still had issues with the internet over there. And that was Spectrum, but we have no issues with Spectrum over here. I'm on Spectrum right now doing this video, and I haven't had any problems with Spectrum. The valet trash is garbage. Garbage for garbage. You pay $37 for it. I don't know, but see, those fees are not built into your rent. They're additional fees that they charge you, and they're not the only community that does this. But I'm just telling you, whoever they're using for valet trash is not worth it. And you don't know from 1 minute to the next if they're going to show up, because all it has to do is rain heavy or the wind blow or it's too hot or they smell a fart or something, and they will say, or it's Halloween, and of course everybody needs to take off for Halloween because Halloween's so important in society. It's it's a time of getting together and getting drunk, and they don't service you on Thanksgiving or Christmas Day, which are arguably, and Easter, which are arguably the three most, or July 4th, by the way, which are arguably the four occasions when you get the most amount of trash. And you need people to take the trash, but they won't service you on those days. So just be aware of it, what you're going to get into if you go to Camden Shadow Brook. I want you to be aware of it. I want you to be aware that when you move into an apartment at Camden Shadow Brook or any of the Camden properties, really this should be good advice anywhere, but I'm telling you about the Camden because this is the issue we're dealing with. If you move into any of those Camden properties, walk through it with a very fine-tooth comb. A very fine-tooth comb. And if you don't want to go through that, don't move into one of their properties. But move it with a very fine-tooth comb. If the carpet looks old, if the flooring looks damaged, if the appliances have problems, you mark it on that inventory. Do not let that go and just go, oh, well, they'll fix it. Also, don't just call people. Put it in writing. Everything you do, every maintenance request you do, don't just call them and say, "Hey, listen, I got no problem with this." Do a maintenance request for it. Um, Make sure the inventory form, the initial inventory is complete, and you tell them every problem you see in the apartment. Look at all the ceilings, the walls, test all the windows. Don't do it haphazardly because you will regret it in the end because they will charge you for it. Just because just because you're going off a good faith of, oh, well, I'm sure they won't charge me for it, doesn't mean they won't. Because yes, apartments have high fees now. They're paying a lot of they're paying a lot of taxes. They pay a lot of commercial relation fees and all these things, and they're only too happy to pass as much of that cost over to you. So don't take it for granted that it's all just this wonderful thing. Oh, they're nice. They're so nice. They'll do things like that. Well, we thought that too, and this is the issue we ran into. And it's also just good business. Okay. Your apartment renting, yes, it's your home, but you have a business relationship with these people. They're not your family. They're not going to come and do things without getting paid to come and do it. Okay. They're not going to come after hours and when they get off the clock and come and do stuff like that. Like I said, and I'm not saying this negative towards Alexandra because she was never mean or rude in any kind of way like that. I always found her very, accommodating as far as answering questions and things like that. But Maggie, who was there when we left, Maggie is someone who would go out of your way to help you. And I can tell you that because Maggie, there was an occasion where Amazon uh, did not deliver. So I had this. We had this a couple occasions, by the way, just to be aware as well. And this is not Camden's fault, by the way. Camden, the GPS led Amazon to a community that's just one parking lot over from the west entrance. It's called Trails on Slaughter or the Trails at Park or Trails at something Park or whatever, which is one parking lot to the left or west of the west entrance. One parking lot entrance to the left of the west entrance on Slaughter Lane. And Amazon delivered to that community to the same door number, same building, same door number, but at that community. And fortunately, the people who lived there were honest people. And they called Camden and said, I think we got packages for some of your residents. And Maggie went through a number of occasions to try and help me get those packages. Now, she could have called and said, someone said they have your packages, here's the number, and, gone at that. But she did a number of things to try and help get those packages delivered to me. And it was right around Christmas time. So it was obviously very important stuff. She was very helpful. Like Maggie very much. Didn't dislike necessarily anybody in the office staff. Like I said, Alexandra had a good experience with, Maggie had a good experience with, Jonathan, who was there. I didn't have any negative experiences with him. I just didn't interact with Jonathan that much. But they're all very nice. Oh, you also need to be aware of this too. So, there was a number of occasions at Camden Shadow Brook where the mail room was broken into. Okay. They put up a gate finally for it, but people could still get into that gate because it wasn't that hard to do. They could get into that gate and they could break into that mailroom. But originally, when we first moved in there, it was just like an open area where there was it wasn't an open area, but it was like the area where the mailroom was set in an area where there was no gate or anything like that. You could just walk up to the mailboxes and you didn't have to go inside the gate of the building. They were on the outside next to the leasing office. So people could go up and they broke into the mailboxes on more than a couple of occasions. So they put a gate in to that community. Well, the problem is the gate was magnetized and controlled by the app. So if you wanted to open any major doors there when they were working, you had to use the app. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, number one, because there was so many issues with the internet going up and down, if the internet wasn't up, you couldn't connect to the gates because there was no internet connection. There was no hub to essentially connect to through the app. So you couldn't connect to it and you wouldn't be able to get inside the gates. And in some cases, you wouldn't be able to get inside your apartment because if the network was down, the coding to get into those apartments would also not work because it's all connected on a network. So there's just a number of issues there that need to be resolved. If you're sight impaired or blind, it's not accessible. It is not an accessible community. Um, the I offer to actually help them braille label their parcel pending lockers because I know how to do braille labeling, and they never took me up on it. So they really weren't that interested in making it more accessible than necessary to create independence for the people who live there that might be sight impaired or blind. And I'm talking about specifically, this is related to what my channel is even all about. But just be aware, there are a number of things you need to keep in track there. So make sure your inventory evaluation form that you get when you first move in, be very thorough about it. If you think there's any problems with carpeting, you think there's any problems with this, write it down so they can't hold it against you when you finally move out of there. Take pictures, take video, log it, and save it. Don't only do anything just over the phone by voice. Follow up with emails if it's anything you need to get done. Let the office do that if they want to do things by voice, as far as like they want to say, well, I've got this or that, do it that way. Maggie, by the way, also the post office, which we'll get in. I won't even get into the post office now. The U.S. mail is. I can't. There's nothing to say about that. But Maggie held some mail that had still been sent over to our old apartment, even though we forwarded our mail. So Maggie was very good about trying to help us out. Like I said, I have a lot. I have good things to say about Maggie. Good things to say about Alexandra. And my disagreement with Christina as the manager is just that there's something very hinky about the report. And I know that Alex was there on April 1st of 2022 because he was standing in the apartment dealing with us when we kept talking about all the problems with the apartment. And I kept having them come in and having them address the trim issue, all these things. He was there. And I have a little bit of an irritation to the fact that she says that he wasn't the manager that day. Well, then why was he there? That means he didn't have the authorization. It also means that telling them about the carpet and the issues with the carpet means that he didn't write it down or acknowledge it anywhere, and we should have written it on the form. So I'll take that, but that carpet was already questionable. I don't care what the records say. And even if it was new, which I don't think it was, can't prove it, but I can tell you that high traffic is just going to happen on carpet like that because it's not very high-end carpet, high quality carpet. And you can just look at the pictures and draw your own opinion. Look at the video I posted. So I just want you to be aware of this with Camden Shadow Brook. And when you move out of an apartment, a Camden Shadow Brook or a Camden or any of the Camden properties or anywhere, quite frankly, make sure everything's in writing and have them walk through with you before you completely move out. And have them see the floors with you and video them as you're showing them the apartment. They may not want to be on camera, and you can say that's fine. Don't show them on camera if they don't want to be shown on camera. But video everything around and then say, I just want to have a log knowing that you were here with me and you got to see what the apartment looked like. Okay. And here's what this looks like. And here's what this looks like. And you and I are on the same page where you're looking at this the exact same time I'm looking at it. And then and then ask them, do you see anything notable that you think I need to be aware of that you're concerned about? And if they say no, it looks okay or whatever, then you have some proof of that. You have some protection. I don't want you to get in a situation where you leave an apartment community, you pay thousands of dollars. Everybody know people pay thousands of dollars to move from one location to the next. That's why moving is such a pain for so many people, because it already costs you a lot of money to move. But then if you get a final bill that says you owe them, $1,200, $1,300 or whatever it is, that's when you're just like, oh, what else is there? There's a cost of doing business. And I think they're trying to pass some of the cost of doing business onto us instead of absorbing it the way they're supposed to. Personal opinion. Anything I've told you is fact about their experience with what we experienced there and what occurred there. That's not opinion. Anytime I've told you that if I was a betting man, I would say this is not me saying that it's fact that they didn't. It's me telling you that there's questionable things. I'm not presenting to you in any way that they're lying, but I am presenting to you that there's contradictions in their report. And that's on paper. Well, digital paper. It's a digital. It was a digital file they sent us. But just be aware of it. And I'm going to send an email to Christina about this as well. I just want you to be aware of it. Take care of yourselves. Be thoughtful when you're about to rent an apartment. I'm going to say on this occasion with Camden, Shadow Brook, or Camden properties in general, just be very aware of it. Make sure you make the right decisions. And I think that's it. I've gone on for a while, but I did want to make sure I covered everything. I hope you found this beneficial. Share it with people if you know they're looking for a place in Austin, down south. Make them aware of it. And just in general, if they're looking at Camden properties. All right. Take care of yourself, and I will see you later.